February 20th, 1994, I raised my hands and I said, God, if I'm not supposed to drink or drug today, I need your help. I felt a rush of energy through my body, a tear came out the side of my eyes, and my compulsion to drink and drug were gone. 16 years completely gone. That whole story started about 7 days before that when a buddy of mine came in and he said to me, he was kind of ranting and raving, kind of yelling and screaming. And I'm like, Lincoln, what is wrong with you? He says, Joe, you're never going to believe what these people want me to do. I was like, what? What could possibly be so horrible? He says, these crazy people want me to go 7 days and then 30 days and then 90 days without drinking. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Who would even think about that? Who would consider going 60 days or 90 days without drinking? Well, it was interesting because at the time, I thought nothing of those crazy thoughts. I was one of these people that drank and drugged every day. I was very functional. It was right before my 31st birthday. And I started to think, I had this kind of crazy awareness at the time. I said, when was the last time I went 30 days or 60 days, or let alone 90 days, and I hadn't drank? And I thought, you know what? It was a long time. I had to really think, and I was kind of figuring it out as probably 14 years old. Well, you know what? I said to myself, I can do this. That's no big deal. What's the big deal? 7 days. Well, of course I can do that. So I said, okay, I'm gonna take the challenge on. Well, for the next 6 days, it was no big deal. I kind of felt the days go by and didn't really miss it that badly. But then, out of nowhere, on that 7th day, I was at a friend's house. He wasn't home at the time, so I'm sitting there kind of in his house where there was marijuana everywhere and alcohol, of course, because that was just kind of the normal of the day. And my addiction had me by the throat. I say to people, I was sitting in a chair, literally white knuckling the sides and the chair handles, saying, if I can just make it one more minute, if I can just make it one more minute, I'll be able to get out of here. Well, minutes passed. Each minute felt like an eternity. And literally after 30 minutes is when I stood up and I made that comment. I said, God, if I'm not supposed to drink or drug today, I need your help. Now, what is very interesting for me is because I was not a God guy. I just wasn't. In fact, the concept of God kind of made the hair on the back of my neck raise. I made a pact with God when I was 26 years old. I basically said, hey, listen, you know what? I know you exist. I don't have anything against you. I know you probably don't have anything against me, but let's just make a deal. I said, you know what, God? You just leave me alone. In other words, don't strike me with lightning for no reason. And if I get in trouble, I won't ask for help. I'll sit in jail. I'll take responsibility for my issues, things that I do. And, that was just kind of my relationship. And I had a lot of friends. I was raised Catholic. I had a lot of friends that Catholicism really kind of worked for. That wasn't me. It never really connected to me. So I just had this deal. You leave me alone, and I won't ask for help. On February 20th, though, 1994, I knew that I had to have help. I couldn't do it without. And sure enough, I was literally struck sober, as I call it. It was one of those things that took me a long time to truly figure out what had happened. All I know is that my need, my craving, my everyday desire for drugs and alcohol were done. They were finished. They were gone. Well, life continued on. I had business down in Florida. And on the 54th day of being dry, I had these really powerful, immense memories of being abused as a child. I was 6 years old and two 16, 17-year-old boys did some things to me with a stick that, no kid, no child, no human should ever have to live through. But I did. And these memories were so traumatic for me. They came out of nowhere that I knew in that moment in time, my life would never be the same. And it wasn't. I got home from Florida. I went into my business. I closed down my family business. I kind of said goodbye to most friends that I had. And I literally lived the next 7 years in what I considered being like a modern day monk. The first 3 years of that time period, I lived on less than $3,000 a year. I literally, when I first got back to Atlanta, I got out of the place I was living. I moved into a warehouse district up in Gainesville, Georgia. I was in an unfinished warehouse where there was a little apartment that basically had concrete floors and a bathroom where I could be safe and I could basically just start my process of healing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to heal. I just knew I had to do it different. And that's what I did. I moved into that warehouse, and basically at nighttime I would go outside and there wasn't a person within miles. I mean, literally I was in a business district. And about 5 or 6 days into that process, of course I was lonely, I was lost, I was confused, I was hungry. I didn't have much money at all. I kind of worked different types of jobs to make ends meet, but it was just a really challenging time. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had this massive quantity of energy come through me, and the rage started to happen. My emotional process at that point became immense. The following 7 years, I learned a few different things. In different videos in the future, I'll go through all of this in more detail. So as you're watching, I'm going to walk you through the process of my life. I consider myself a true rags to riches to glory story. And it all starts with this story, quite honestly. And basically over that 7-year period of time, I learned 3 or 4 pretty profound things. I learned the truth around surrender and around forgiveness. I hear these so-called experts out there online and these people that have sold millions of books act as if surrender or forgiveness are light switches, like they're just action steps. Should be able to just surrender anytime you want. You should be able to just forgive anytime you want. Well, that's just not true. So if you're right now watching this and there's something in your life you just can't let go of, or if there's some person in your life you just can't forgive, please know you are okay. Forgiveness and surrender are not action steps. They are both consequences, spiritual consequences that happen as a consequence of taking action steps. So in the forgiveness process, basically, the reason you have a difficult time forgiving is because there's still pain associated with whoever it is you still have an angst with. And that is perfectly okay. The concept of surrender, letting go, moving on, what we have to look at and what we have to address, what we have to figure out is why is it you're holding on in the first place? 99% of the time we're holding on out of fear. We're either afraid of letting go of what we have, or we're afraid of not getting what we want, but it's fear that causes us to hold on. So over that 7-year period of time, I really learned the difference between true surrender and true forgiveness and what it really meant. The other thing I learned, quite honestly, that there's a God and it's not me. Now at this point in time, I couldn't use the word God. I used the word spirit, I used the word great spirit, I used anything but that word G-O-D, God. It just didn't work for me. Today, I have a much comfortable relationship with that concept. In the beginning, no way. I moved more into the Native American perspective of a power greater, of a universal love, of universal support. That's why I called it spirit and great spirit. The other thing I learned is that all addiction, 100% of addiction, is caused by toxic shame. To truly heal your addiction, you have to heal the hurt that's causing the addiction in the first place. Now, what keeps us away from the hurt? It's shame. Now, for most people that aren't in a daily addiction, aren't in a daily difficulty, aren't in the paralyzing experience of toxic shame, your voices are going to sound something like, I'm just not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm too fat, or I'm the wrong color, or I'm not tall enough, You're going to hear a bunch of I'm not voices. Normal shame, that's normal kind of limiting beliefs. And you know what? We can help heal that. For those of you that are in a paralyzing place, in the place where it's called toxic shame, where your voices are literally crucifying you over and over and over. Toxic shame is truly the shame that causes most addiction. Now, my addictions were to alcohol and marijuana, but I had addictions to everything. If it was out there, I was addicted to it. From sex to drugs to people to money to working out, you name it, I had an addiction to it. And what was I truly trying to accomplish with these addictions? What was I truly trying to help by all of the different substances and the people and the places and the things and money? I was trying to help a hurting heart. I was hurting all the time. Well, friends, I'm telling you today I'm not. And I learned how to heal the depths of my pain through the embracing of the inner child, which allowed me to bring a voice to my deepest parts, bring a voice to my parts that were hurting the most. For Joe, enlightenment is all about bringing awareness and light, our connection to the parts of Joe that were so deeply buried. We are a multi-dimensional being. We all have a higher power. We all have a self. We all have a deeper inner self. And through this journey of my social media, my book you see here, Healing Addiction, I'm going to teach people. I can teach people how to truly embrace all those parts, live in a communion called a we, and move from a place of rags to a place of riches, to a place of glory. And I am happy to say today, as I make this first video, that I literally live in a place of glory.